This week on the Orange Box Podcast, we talk all about the big Switch 2 Direct and more. But first, on to that beautiful bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 78. I am your host, the man who will not be paying $90 for Mario Kart World, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me as always, the man who will be buying 2 copies of Metroid Prime 4, if not 3, Justin, better known as I am Saracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
Not bad. Not too much really happened. This past weekend though, on Saturday, my sister, my brother-in-law, and I, and my mother, we went to the Museum of the Bible in Washington D.C. We spent the afternoon there. Saw some good stuff, some historical stuff, and then also some other exhibits they had there as well, such as an exhibit dedicated to C.S. Lewis. So seeing about a lot of his life and then also some of his works as well. That was definitely good to see. And then we spent the night at my sister's before heading out. But Sunday I came back and I finally tested out the new splitters that came in for my GameCube, and thankfully everything mostly works. I say mostly because the video came through, which was the most important thing that I wanted, but the audio for some reason wasn't working at all, whether connecting to my TV or to my capture card, so that's something I have to work out. But at least the good news is that at least all the footage I wanted to get, I was able to grab at least. So that at least is the good news there. So anything else, I'll just have to worry about in the future. But got to play some games though. Definitely got to go back to old games, try some new games. It was just a good time in that regard. But yeah, that's essentially everything that's happened with me.
All right, good stuff. Oh, well, my week has been kind of a mixed bag. Mostly just been tired a lot, been busy, and I'm sure there's some stuff I'm forgetting about, but I'll go through what I remember has happened. So, of course, did music on Sunday. That went really well. And let's see here. Monday we went and looked at getting trees for our yard because we've been wanting to do that for a few years now. We just hadn't gotten around to it. One of the things was we wanted to get a Japanese maple tree because that's one that my mom really wanted to have in the yard before she died. And so we're looking at those. And then we also looked at some fruit trees. We actually discovered something that I didn't even know existed until the other day. And that is there are what they call fruit cocktail trees, where it's I can't remember if they do it with apples and stuff too, but it's primarily stone fruit. They graft in branches from other trees, and as long as the grafting works properly, you can have 4 different kinds of fruit on a single tree. And it's not like anything like weird, like genetic modification. It's actually like a practice that they did back in Bible times with like olive trees and stuff. You know, that Christ talks about grafting people into, grafting in the Gentiles, with the Jews and everything like that. So it just basically makes it so that you can have all these different kinds of fruit growing on the same tree. Huh. And so the one we settled on, which we ended up getting 2 of, was one that has peaches, nectarines, apricots, and plums all on the same tree. So, we had looked at it on Monday, and we decided yesterday to actually, yesterday after we figured out specifically what we wanted to do, we went and picked them up. And we got 2 of those fruit trees that are going to go in our backyard. and then we got one Japanese maple that's going to go in the front yard. We haven't planted them yet because we got some advice from my brother-in-law's dad that basically, because he's a horticulturalist, and he says that it's a good idea to leave the tree like in the planter before you plant it, like leave it out for like a week in the spot where you want to plant it, make sure it's doing well, and then if it does well in that location, then go ahead and plant it. More likely than not, we won't have to wait quite that long because we get a lot of direct sunlight since we don't have much of any trees around here, because this is not far from where the tornado went through 11 years or no 14 years ago. So the big group of tornadoes back in 2011 for Joplin. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, I'm looking forward to getting those trees put up. That'll be fun. But speaking of tornadoes, we did have an adventure this morning. There was a tornado warning and the siren went off, and we had to get out to our tornado shelter. Thankfully, I don't think anything actually touched down, and it was pretty far from where we were, like probably 15-20 miles away. But it was still something where we had to run to the tornado shelter, and it was during my brain's not working. It was during the Nintendo Direct this morning. Oh. So I mean, I basically was just like, I had one earbud in and was watching as much as I could while we were out there, and then got back. We were all given the all clear before it was over, and I was able to just went in and finished watching it and everything. Trying to think of what else. Oh, this weekend, my wife and I get to go on a marriage retreat, which is exciting because we've been married for almost 16 years and we've never been able to go to a marriage retreat. My in-laws are in town, so they're going to be staying with the kids, and they'll take them to church and everything on Sunday. So it's going to be really nice for us. We really could use the break, so we're going to go in Friday around lunchtime, and then we will be coming back sometime Sunday afternoon. I feel like there's something else I'm forgetting. I mean, I smoked a brisket over the weekend, which didn't last very long. We have a little bit left, but I took it to our family group on Sunday evening, so it mostly got eaten at that point, but I smoked it for about 18 hours. Man, I feel like I'm forgetting something else, and I honestly don't know what it is. So, it probably wasn't all that important. But, yeah. Anyway, what have you been playing this past week?
Alright, so I've been playing quite a few things, although several of them I'll keep brief just because I didn't play that much of them. First thing I played was Batman Vengeance. It's a game that I've played before. In fact, I think I even played it sometime a while ago, earlier in the podcast, but I really just wanted to test it out, and really didn't get too much far past the tutorial mission, so not much to say there. I feel like I want to come back eventually and make a full video discussing this, because I do actually have a lot of opinions on this game, but I think just in general, I don't really have too much to say on it as a whole. Next thing I played was Super Smash Bros. Melee, and it's definitely been a long while since I've played this game, because just the way that it feels is so different. I mean, sure, Smash Ultimate tried to replicate some things from Melee, especially with the wave dashing, and I think some L canceling as well, but I think as far as like some of the characters control, it's definitely a whole lot different, and it really makes me... It definitely really showed why Sheik was my main, as opposed to playing virtually any other character in this game. But I mean, I still think this is a pretty solid game, and I would say for what you get, I would say, as far as like even all the extra content and side stuff you can do, I would argue that it's probably one of the best in the series just because it didn't feel too bloated, but still felt like you had a lot of content there in general. So definitely a good game in that regard. So I played Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes, and I know there's some controversy around this game because some people like it, some people don't like it. This was really actually my first foray into Metal Gear Solid 1, because I never played the PS version, not even in emulation. So this game is essentially my first go into Metal Gear Solid. Unfortunately, I didn't really play too much of it for several reasons. One, learning how to play the game is, unless you have a manual, it's just so difficult because it doesn't tell you anything at all. I mean, it says maybe the action button, but I don't know what the action button is. So I'm pressing every button, and within the first 20 seconds of the game, I was caught, I was shot, I died, and that was something that happened at least 3 times as I'm trying to figure out all the buttons. And then eventually I said, you know what, let me look up game facts online, see what the controls are, how those work. And then once I finally figured out, oh, this is how I crouch. This is how I activate buttons or activate switches and stuff. This is how I do this and that. Then I finally got past the first room and got outside. Now, unfortunately, I'm just not good at this game. I'll just say that because I made it probably to the very first. Well, no, you're outside at the helipad, and I thought I was going to sneak past around the searchlights, but then there was a guard, and I was trying to sneak past around, but he heard me, and so then he started shooting at me. I punched him down. Another guard was coming. I ran past him, went into the vent, went inside. I thought, all right, that's cool. Got past the rats and stuff, went inside. As soon as I step out of the vents, I'm immediately spotted. I'm just like, you know what? This game hates me. I'm good for one day. So yeah, that's my foray in Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes. I definitely did a whole lot better in Snake Eater, I'll tell you that much. But then when I was trying out games, I thought maybe I should play Metroid Prime, but I said no. I'm gonna play a game that really deserves playing, and that was Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. And wow, this game is just it's better than I remember it, to be honest. And also, I don't know if this is because I was using component cables versus using composite, but the game looks so good. And I mean, I already said before that I thought that Metroid Prime looks good for its age. I mean, I think that if Metroid Prime was never remastered, it would still look good to this day. And I actually think that the same would apply for Metroid Prime 2, because that game just looks so good. Now, a couple things that I noticed in the recording that I didn't see when I was playing it on my TV is that there does seem to be some jaggedness as far as with, like, I think the lower part of the visor that wasn't really there, so it looks a little smoother on the TV as opposed to the recording. So I don't know if that is because of getting converted from analog to digital or whatnot, but I think just in general though the game still looks good. Definitely performs well. It feels so good. It's Metroid goodness, and I really just love this game so much. And it just makes me sad that we didn't hear anything today regarding Prime 2, or even last week for that matter, but still, this is just a great game, and part of me wants to come back and play some more of it, but I'll see. I still have tons of games to actually play and go back to. But then moving along, I played some Sonic Heroes, and this game, I feel like to a degree, this game looks a little better than what I remember. Certain details in the environments looked more detailed than I recall. I think the game's pretty good. It's probably not my favorite Sonic game, at least at least with the 3D games, I would probably say it's not my favorite. It's probably right behind Adventure, but I still think that this is a pretty good Sonic game. Definitely different since you're using 3 characters instead of just using one. I like that there is some variety too, as far as like certain obstacles or certain ways you can go. The way you use your characters who you're controlling initially or primarily will affect what happens. So I definitely like how they approach that. And it does make me sort of want them to do a remaster, sort of like what they did with Colors and Generations. But I think if they never did, I won't be too upset. But it's still a good game worth mentioning. Played some Mario Kart Double Dash, and this is a game that I never actually played before. So I was interested in seeing how this went. I mean, of course, it's Mario Kart. I don't think there's ever really been a bad Mario Kart game. But, this one definitely was fun. It was interesting, being able to switch back and forth between characters, or at least who you're controlling. So like, one character has to power up, you can switch them to grab another power up and just, alternate between them. So I thought that was pretty good. I played for a few different tours, and it definitely was good, fun, but I think that there were still a couple things with the controls that I just had to figure out and fix. But all in all, though, it's a solid game, and I definitely would recommend if you have a GameCube. And then the last GameCube game I played was Superman Shadow of Apocalypse. And this, interestingly enough, was the game I've played the most out of all the GameCube games. And partially it's because of morbid curiosity, because my cousin had this game growing up, and I had seen him play it a few times, but I didn't actually play it myself. And while this game is nowhere near as good as, say, Batman Arkham Asylum, it's a far cry from the atrocity that is Superman 64. I'll definitely say that, which makes me wonder why this game hasn't been talked about that much, because it's decent enough. I mean, I feel like some of the controls are a bit clunky, especially with some of the movement that you do as Superman, but it works. The game works. I mean, the controls work, and I think that there's a bit of a balance between, you have a character who's Superman, who's, stronger than all the other characters, has all these different abilities. So it's like, how do you sort of balance that? And so having his health and superpowers regenerate over time sort of compensates to the fact that you do lose them as you use them, and, as you take damage, your health goes down. So I do appreciate that aspect of it, and, you do have different abilities like your heat vision, super breath, flights, and I think there's X-ray vision, super hearing, so you do have different abilities that you can use, and it overall is interesting. I might play this game some more just because I'm still curious enough about this game that I think it's worth giving it a shot, but I'll see how I feel about it later on, though. And then lastly, what I've been playing outside of the GameCube, which has been the only game, is Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance. Now, I've been feeling a bit of a Kingdom Hearts itch, but I didn't want to go back to Birth by Sleep because I really just did not feel like going through all of the tedious stuff for the achievements, at least not yet. So I said, let me play Dream Drop Distance. I think that's fine for right now. And I think I made a good choice there, because the game feels a whole lot better than Birth by Sleep did. I mean, it feels a whole lot smoother. It feels a little faster paced, which I like. And I think that even though the characters are slightly different as far as, I mean, of course, their abilities, but I think even though I think Sora can take more damage, or at least he doesn't feel as weak as Riku, though Riku, I think, deals a little more damage than Sora does. I think both characters still feel great, whereas I didn't really feel that satisfaction when I was playing as Terra, Ventus, or Aqua. So I definitely feel like both characters feel a whole lot better to use and play. I still am not too fond of the drop mechanics, or at least the forced drop mechanics. I think that's one of the things that I was never a fan of. I mean, I think manually dropping is fine, but being in the middle of something you're doing and then seeing the clock go down, I wasn't too fond of that, personally speaking. But I mean, I think as a whole though, game's pretty good. I got through Traverse Town. I'm currently in the second area. I can't remember what the official name is, but it's the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and doing that. But one thing I'll also say is Proud Mode. It definitely is not necessarily a joke, because the enemies definitely hit so much harder, and considering the fact that this game doesn't have a critical mode but just Proud Mode, I would dread to see how the game would be if you're playing actually on critical, because I feel like I definitely need to do some grinding, because I've almost been wiped out a couple times by enemies, and it's not good, and especially since I think there's an achievement where you have to beat the game without using a continue, so I really need to just level up some more so that doesn't happen. But yeah, that is it for Dream Drop Distance, and that is the last game that I've played.
So one of the questions I had was it just my imagination, or did some of the footage seem like the coloring was off?
Yeah, that's something that, well, at least partially, the coloring did seem different to me, and I do know that at least for a couple games, they are darker, or at least the overall lighting seems darker, and I'm not certain. I think that's partially due to the games being put through a splitter, because when I was just putting the games through directly into my TV or through my capture card before I saw how much lag there was with the controls, I saw it definitely looked different, so that could be the case, but I can't confirm that for certain. And I do know that at least for Metal Gear Solid and Batman Vengeance, the games are darker in the recordings than when I played them on my TV. Because I know that at least with Batman Vengeance, I had to up the in-game brightness just so it wouldn't be pitch black in the recording. And I was trying to do that for Metal Gear Solid, but I couldn't do it for that. So yeah, I'm not certain what the issue is. It could be the splitter. I could try putting it through another port, but I do see that like there are some differences from what I remember, especially with like Sonic Heroes. I saw that the colors definitely seemed different to me.
Yeah, I don't know if I really have any other thoughts. Yeah, nothing else I can think of. All right, so in terms of what I've been playing, it's actually a significantly shorter list than usual. I will say, first of all, I don't currently have the footage in there, and I just didn't get a chance to transfer it over from my Steam Deck. But to get the smaller things out of the way, first of all, I did play a little bit of both Cruisin' Blast and Smash Bros. Ultimate with the kids. Not very much. Cruisin' Blast definitely played more of it, but I didn't record any footage for either of those games. One of the things that I did decide to purchase and try out for fun is Yasuke Simulator, otherwise known as I Am Zeracon Simulator. And wow, this game is terrible. It is janky beyond jank. Quite humorous in terms of just how, like, it very much uses stereotypes for just everything, and it's like it's clearly designed. It's not designed with a controller in mind, because I only tried playing it on the Steam Deck, and yeah, it was extremely jank. So it's very funny. I mean, like, you start off the game, you have to like you go through like an obstacle course initially just to kind of learn the different control things, and like, you know, first you're doing things like jumping and diving and rolling, and then you're having to like crawl under some barbed wire fences, and then you're having to ride a bicycle over jumps and stuff, and it just controls horribly. And then you get into like it's a fighting, and the first thing you're supposed to do is pick up a gun and start shooting. You have like a bunch of these like criminal clan guys coming at you. They're all like saying the same thing. It's like, you are not samurai, you are not samurai, and it's just you're just endlessly coming at you for a while there. And then you have like a big boss come out. Just made me, think of something out of a Souls game. And yeah, it's really funny. Yeah, I didn't play very much. I basically just played past like the very opening level and partway into the second level, and that was it. It just, wow, it controls horribly. And I mean, I know it's not intended to play well. It's intended to be making fun of Ubisoft games and the jank that's associated with them, but obviously the Ubisoft games are not that janky. Regardless of glitches and everything else, they're never that bad. I would say it's probably the worst game I've ever played. But it was funny just because of the statement it was making about everything. But yeah, so I played a little bit of that. I did play a tiny bit of Dark Souls 2. I don't even think I recorded any footage. It was last Thursday on my lunch break. I hopped in and was just I decided that I wanted to grind out to try to see if I could get the Haida Knight armor, or the Haida Knight cloak, whatever it's called, because I had that in my previous game and I just like the way it looks. But so I was just grinding and killing some of those guys, trying to get that to drop. I think I completely killed all of them without it dropping, so I'll probably have to join the Champions Covenant for a little bit if I want to really try grinding that out, but we'll see. I didn't play anything beyond that though. And today, just because of one of the things we saw on the Nintendo Direct, which if you saw the Nintendo Direct, you know this, but I decided to boot up Elden Ring on my PC just because I was like, I haven't tried this in a while. I wanted to see if it plays any better now. Because the last time I tried playing it was when I was doing my Stack Up stream last year. And it was running unusually bad. And I couldn't figure out why. So it's just like, I don't know. But anyway, so I just booted it up this evening and was messing around with it a little bit. And still couldn't get past the point where I was stuck, which was fighting one of those falling star beasts that's out in the field, and that thing is a pain in the butt. I mean, I did watch some videos after the fact and found some stuff that might make it so I can actually get through that fight, but man, like I just was not doing well at all in that fight. I couldn't even get him down like a third of his health. I just kept dying, so. But of course, it doesn't help that I'm just like so used to having back buttons available for controls, because I use one for sprinting, and then I use another for healing, and then like on Elden Ring, I'll have one of the back buttons is for summoning Torrent. So I just press one button to summon him instead of having to hold down a button and then press another button, and stuff like that. So yeah. And on top of that, it's just the most recent game I had been playing was Dark Souls 2, which controls very different. So, but the one game that I have been playing the most is the Somnium Files. So, this is a game that originally launched on the Switch, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And it's a visual novel that's from the creators of the Zero Escape series, which is 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors. There's that, and then I think Zero Escape is probably actually the name of the second game. So it's the Nonary Games is the Zero Escape series. So anyway, I think the second game is called Zero Escape, maybe. I don't know. It's gonna bug me until I can remember what the name of it is. But anyway, and then the third game was Virtue's Last Reward. So, but it's a great visual novel series. Visual novels are something that are kind of hard to get into, but when you get into them, it's like, this is really gripping. Like, I want to keep playing this. And so when I found out the last week's Nintendo Direct showed the third game in this I series, which I didn't realize there was 2 games. And since I just hadn't really gotten into playing the first one, like I tried it a little bit during, I think, one of my stack up streams, and because it was late at night, it just wasn't really like grabbing me, getting its hooks in me. And there's always kind of a hurdle I have to get over with visual novels anyway. But I had never really gotten anywhere on Switch, and then I bought it on Steam, I don't know, a few months ago. Something like that. So I just booted it up on my Steam Deck. And I got past the point that I had been stuck at on the Switch version, which was very, very early in the game. And it got its hooks in me, and I've been playing a lot. It's the game I've been playing the most anyway. I don't know exactly how many hours I have in the game. But, one second. Let me look and see what I have here. It looks like about almost 13 hours. But yeah, so it's, I've been going through, I've gotten, I think 2 or 3 endings, including one which was just a bad ending. I won't really talk about the mechanics of the game, and I'm not going to include any footage from my gameplay because any of that would be spoilers, and so I'll just do like the basic trailer for this game. But yeah, it's really good. It is definitely M-rated, without question. Not like it has nudity or anything like that. It's just like very dark murder mystery kind of stuff, and has sci-fi elements to it, and it's just interesting. But it's very good, and I really am enjoying it. I'm planning on sticking with it until I'm done with it. But yeah, that's really all I've been playing that I can think of. And I will say, I'm not planning to jump into Elden Ring right now. I'm like, no, I don't really want to. If I'm going back to a Souls game, it's going to be continuing Dark Souls 2. I just wanted to boot up Elden Ring briefly, which I guess I forgot to mention that when I booted it up, it was running a lot better. When I maxed out all the settings, including the maximum ray tracing, I was getting not as good of a frame rate as I would have liked because it was below 60. But that was with everything maxed out at 1440p. When I got rid of ray tracing, I was getting a locked 60. But it's capped at 60, so... I mean, there are ways to remove that cap, and I've done that before, like when I first got the game back in 2022, but yeah. So anyway, that's everything.
Okay. Going all, just since we were discussing that, I was about to ask you if Elden Ring was capped at 60, but you said that it did have a cap. I'm hoping that because of Armored Core 6 and how they upped that to 120, I'm hoping that from now on they won't have any more 60 FPS caps, because I think we're well past that point of needing it or even wanting that right now. So, hopefully we're done with that. Well, I would assume, since it has the same name, Night Rain also has like the 120 cap, correct? Or is it just fully uncapped?
I don't know. It's not out, so I don't have any idea. I haven't looked into it.
Okay, I didn't know if like anyone say anything from the beta tests or anything like that, if anything was mentioned about the performance.
Yeah, there might have been, but I honestly don't remember.
Okay. Okay, cool stuff there. Regarding you said that it there are two games out so far. So I mean, I guess without spoiling anything, because I haven't heard of the games before, is it more in line with the Zero Escape games, or
It's
or
got
like
similarities.
different?
That's about the extent of what I can say without spoiling anything. It has similarities. It's not the same story, not the same characters. That story was complete. But it has elements that are very similar.
Okay.
That's about the extent of what I can say.
Does it have the puzzle aspects of it from? Okay.
Not really, no, because you're not really dealing with escape rooms at all.
Okay.
It's basically, I mean, I guess there's sort of that because one of the main things you do, and this doesn't spoil anything because you do it very early in the game, is your character Date syncs with another character. Like they use like this machine that basically lets him go into their dreams, and then he has to unlock certain mental locks that they have by basically solving puzzles. So that's essentially what it is, but sometimes it's literally just picking the right option of how to interact with a certain object. So okay. It's got some similarities, but it's not exactly the same. And I mean the story is very different. There's just similar elements which haven't, at least so far, have not been fully explained, and I imagine they will. Well, from my understanding, they will be explained later on, and based on the history of these creators, I believe it will be.
Okay. I think that's everything I have then.
All right, sounds good. Well, we have had an interesting week. We, of course, last week we had the Nintendo Switch Direct, the last one for just the Switch. And there was, I mean, we could talk about any of that stuff we want, but really there's nothing that was shown there that wasn't shown at the Switch 2 Direct that I can think of. Apart from like the whole digital cartridge thing, which I still don't fully understand. Is there anything from that Direct that you want to discuss, or do you just want to go straight into the Switch 2 Direct?
Well, there were a couple things in that Direct that I'm pretty certain weren't in the Switch 2 Direct, which I thought were very interesting. And the first one, I knew immediately that this was what it was, but the second game, I actually had to learn later on, and that is Patapon 1 and 2, and Everybody's Golf Hot Shots coming over to the Switch, as well as PS5 and PC, and namely because those are games that were originally Sony exclusives and Japan Studio games at that, which is very interesting. Now, these have been licensed out to Bandai Namco, but the fact that these games are leaving Sony and going to Nintendo, and of course PC, it just was interesting to me. I thought that was very interesting. Now, I wasn't interested in necessarily Everybody's Golf because I'm not a golf game kind of person, but yeah, Patapon, those were games that I was interested in getting. In fact, I even was looking had an eye out on the spiritual successor that's, I think, currently on Kickstarter, called Ratatat, which is following the same formula. But the fact that the official original games are being ported over is great to me. And I definitely was interested in checking those out when they come out.
Yeah, I forgot about those, but yeah, I mean, when I initially saw them, I was like, were those originally PlayStation exclusives? And then, I looked into it, it's like, oh yeah, they were. And because it's like, especially, I mean, Patapon, especially, like at first I was less sure about it, and then Everybody's Golf, I was like, I'm almost certain that was a PlayStation exclusive. But yeah, I mean, it's good that they're still coming to. It would be funny, but it's good that they are still coming to PlayStation. I think it's funny that they're coming to Switch and PC, even though, of course, they're, especially Patapon, is a perfect fit for the Switch. And I think it looks fun, but at the same time, I'm not really into those kinds of like rhythm games. And I am so bad with reaction times. It's just like, I am so terrible, which is one of the reasons why I don't play those rhythm games. It's because I have rhythm. Rhythm is not my problem. My problem is that my reaction time is horrendous when it comes to you're pressing the buttons in accord because of the fact that I'm like, my muscle memory is not good enough, I guess, maybe. Like, I see the button and it takes a second for it to register in my brain which button I need to press, and then I spend too much time and it messes up the timing, and yeah. It's why I've never successfully been able to do anything like Guitar Hero. There's a big difference between doing fingers on a string and then strumming than there is from having to press specific buttons. It's just a completely different kind of muscle memory. So, yeah. But yeah, that is very, very good point. I think between those two, Patapon would be one I'd be more interested in, but I don't know. We'll see. I guess it's probably partially going to depend on price, too. If it's cheap enough, I'd be absolutely willing to, just grab the physical. Especially because at least with Switch 1 games, physical prices don't seem like they've gone ridiculous, but the Switch 2 ones, like, Although, as a quick side note, I did, just because I saw that it was available and we had talked about the game before. You remember that game that was shown in one of the Nintendo Indie Directs a while ago called Shim? Where you're like a shadow jumping in different... I found a physical of that for Switch, so I grabbed it. I haven't played it yet, but mostly because my kids are playing my Switch all the time, and so I just haven't. But that's one of the main reasons why I'm getting a Switch 2. But yeah. So anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Was there anything else Switch 1 specific that you wanted to discuss?
No, nothing else for me.
All right, so the Switch 2 Direct. Now, I do actually have the video queued up here, and I'll probably have to chop things up as needed. But I'm playing this mostly so that it can help me remember stuff that's in there. So I'll just I'll bring up the different things as they come up in this video, and then we can discuss anything that comes up. So we'll just go through this in order. Starting with Mario Kart World. What are your thoughts on this game?
All right, so it's definitely much more expansive than I initially thought. I mean, granted, I've only played 3 Mario Kart games technically. Mario Kart 64, Mario Kart 8, and of course a little bit of Double Dash now, but those have been pretty much my full experience. So I thought it's very interesting the fact that you have the new free roam mechanic, which I think might be a little disappointing depending on how they handle the open world, because if you're just driving around in an empty world, it's not gonna be that interesting. However, if you're able to say go to each track and just like explore each track, I think that's pretty cool. If you want to learn, hey, is there a shortcut here? How can I sort of practice with racing around a different course? I think that's a good idea. I think that's cool. I also like the different modes that they have, the different the different, I guess, battle modes, and then also the other types of racing modes. I think that's great. And then also, of course, just having as many people able to race as you can. That's more than you've been able to do before. That's also great. So yeah, all in all, I think those features are good. I wish I could say the same about the price though. That is definitely on the much steeper side of things. And it's something, I guess, just as a whole is just yeah, not too fond of. But I mean, as far as the game itself, it looks good. I just don't think I'll be getting it though because of aforementioned pricing reasons. But I mean, hey, I think I think they've done some good work here though. Definitely looks good.
Yeah, so it's interesting because when I was initially watching this, I was definitely like, okay, I see some of the new mechanics they did. You know, they added like the, driving on walls a bit more. You know, and while that's existed to some degree in the Mario Kart games, it didn't seem like it's never really existed to that extent. Because it's been like just, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but it seemed like it was a little more of an on-the-fly mechanic, especially because you could jump from wall to wall, which was a bit different. And I guess that's the part that was a little more different. But that and like grinding on the rails, like grinding on your side wheels, I thought was kind of cool. But then they, talked about the open world stuff and basically just made me think this is basically Forza Horizon Mario Kart Edition. I mean, it was like, I think the ideas are cool. I think I'm glad they're doing something that's different. I'm not entirely sure exactly how much I like it, but like one of the things they do have is that you can basically drive through multiple courses back to back. And it's not like you exit one course and then come into the other. It's basically like you're continuously driving through. Or at least that's what it looked like. So that I thought that was interesting. And, then there's some free roam that they also showed, and that's more of the Forza Horizon kind of stuff, which I think definitely makes it interesting. A lot more exploration, and I think that has the potential to be, like, really kind of a chill thing to do. And it does give more to the game because, honestly, I've gotten a little tired of the Mario Kart formula. Like, the games are fun, but after a certain point, especially when you're playing single player, it just gets a little old. And I mean, I've played almost every Mario Kart since Mario Kart 64. I mean, technically, I played Super Mario Kart as well, just not as much. But like, I heavily played Mario Kart 64 and Double Dash. I didn't play as much of the Game Boy Advance. Oh, I didn't really play the Game Boy Advance one. I didn't play the DS one. Played a lot of the Wii one and the 3DS one and Wii U and Switch. And barely touched the mobile one because it was just, it's awful. Or at least, it's not a real Mario Kart game as far as I'm concerned. But I don't know. This one, even price aside, like, I was pretty excited about it when I first watched it, and now I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I'm not sure what I think about it right now. So, it's kind of I'm in between on it. Now, when we think about the price, so on its own, it's $80 for the digital-only version. If you want to buy the physical version, it's $90. Now, the only way that you can actually get it cheaper than either of those options is if you buy the Switch 2 bundle, which includes the game and basically makes it $50. Which, to me, that's a way better price. Like, $50... If it was $50 for the digital version, included with the console, like you save money buying it with the console, and then like it was, even if it was, I'd be willing to do 60 digital, 70 physical if it came to that, even though I would rather just have it be the same price for both. And I kind of get the reasoning behind it because obviously it does cost more to produce the cartridges and everything. But and I know that not every single Switch 2 game is going to be that high of a price. This is just one of them that is. but they're still having that $10 difference in price between the digital and the physical versions. And even just having $80 for either one is stupid. The only way that it should ever be that expensive is if it includes a bunch of extra content. If it included all the DLC for free and they said every bit of DLC that comes out in the future will be included with this version, then I would say, okay, I can understand that more, even though I still think it should be cheaper. But when there's no indication that that's going to be the case, and I would imagine more likely than not, they're going to end up charging, $25 for an extra set of tracks down the road. I'm not cool with that. So I have not decided if I'm getting this. If I do, it would probably just be getting it bundled digitally, because I cannot spend $80 on a cartridge, or $90 on a cartridge. And $80 for digital version. That's just insane. And it's no wonder that they decided to get rid of the game vouchers, because of the fact that they were bumping up the prices so much. They didn't want people to save that much money. So I mean, if the price wasn't a factor, I think this game would actually look pretty good. And you're not required to do any of the open world stuff. You can just play it like you would a normal Mario Kart game, and it looks great. You can have a lot more players. It's going to run really well. This game is going to, I believe, based on what they say about some stuff later on, which we'll kind of get more into, but this one's going to be 4K 60 frames per second. And probably, if you want to do 120 frames per second, it'll be 1080p. Because I imagine that more likely than not, they're going to have that mode based on what they have for some other games. But we'll talk more about that aspect later on. So, any more thoughts on Mario Kart 8? Or Mario Kart 8. Mario Kart World.
No, sir. No, sir.
All right, so the next thing they talked about was what that mysterious C button is, and it is for chat functionality, which there's basic voice chat, because there's a microphone included in the system, which I guess has pretty good range on it. Should still be pretty clear even from if the system's a little further away. Also has the ability to do like a bit of video chat function if you buy their optional camera that they have available. And so you can kind of like see other players' faces and or gameplay to some degree in the bottom of your screen while you're playing with people far away or what have you. But what are your thoughts on this?
So shortly before the direct went live, I saw a very funny comments someone shared it in Discord and said the C button actually stands for copyright, so you can report anyone who's copyrighting Nintendo games directly to Nintendo if they're playing the games they don't want you to be playing. But I think though, just as a chat feature, I honestly think they spent a whole lot of time on something that they didn't really need to spend that much time talking about, just because chat is a basic function that every system has. So like they talked about for a good while now. Granted, I do at least appreciate the fact that they got rid of the app. I thought that was one of the stupidest things they did with the Switch, where you need to have the app just to use voice chat, and I thought that was dumb. I think it's interesting that you can use video chat, and I will actually give Nintendo credit because, to my knowledge, at least, no other platform allows video share or screen share while you're playing a game. In fact, to my knowledge, the only way you can even do that on PC is if you're like doing it in Discord, but I could be wrong. So I will at least give Nintendo credit for that aspect, where no one else has been able to do that so far, or at least has implemented it. I'm curious though if you could actually use a different camera or use your own type of camera, as long as it has USB-C as the final attachment. I did see that the camera ends in USB Type-C, so I'm curious to know if you could just use any type of camera with it and it would work. Because I mean, honestly, I would not want to spend $109 on a camera just for something that, you know, I probably would maybe just use in a couple games at most. Yeah, I would not spend that much money on something like that. But I mean, hey, at least we've got basic voice chat now, which, you know, welcome to the 21st century, Nintendo.
Right.
But yeah, glad that's implemented, and we don't need anything else extra for that. So yeah, that's essentially everything that I have to say on that matter. I mean, it's a bit disappointing that it doesn't have that the C button's not actually some cool feature, but I mean, hey, at least you've got your mic button, mute button for your controller now, and you also have a headphone port too for your controllers.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. It's kind of like, okay, yep, like you said, welcome to the 21st century, or the 20th century, really. Well, no, I guess not. I guess it really is 21st. But anyway, point is that, you know, welcome to multiple generations ago of console. It's funny though, because I seem to remember that IGN's Nintendo podcast that they've had, you know, going for a number of years, they named it Nintendo Voice Chat, basically just making fun of the fact that Nintendo didn't have voice chat, and now Nintendo finally has voice chat. But yeah, beyond that, I honestly don't care. I mean, I guess it's cool that it's a thing, and it's interesting that the screen sharing, like the frame rate is super choppy for all the games that are being shared. I mean, I get it, you know, you want to dedicate the resources to the game that's actually being played, but I still think it's kind of funny. And I'm not buying one of those cameras. I will never use it. It is completely pointless.
Agreed.
But yeah. Okay, so here's when they start going over all of the actual new features for the Switch 2. So, larger screen, has HDR. They don't specifically mention this in the Direct, but it has a 120 hertz 1080p display. So they do mention that it's 1080p. They don't specifically say it's 120 hertz, but since they mentioned games can do up to 120 FPS even on the handheld, that is pretty clear that is a thing for the display. It has the mouse Joy-Con, which is going to be used in a variety of different situations. And it's still using LCD screen, but now, of course, it has the HDR, which is great. And has the magnetic Joy-Cons, which they basically explained that the SL and SR buttons are magnetic, and that's how it helps to they're metallic, so that's how it maintains the magnetic attachment. So instead of them being plastic, that's how they maintain the magnets, and they show that they don't just pull off easily, that if you don't press the buttons they won't pull off, which is great. I'm just trying to make sure I cover all the basics before I let you take over here. Like I said, mouse controls for both Joy-Cons. They say that it has improved speakers, that it looks like I believe you can also adjust the levels as you desire, you know, between the treble, middle, and bass. Built-in microphone, and I think that's basically everything now. So, 3D audio is another thing they added with it. Now it has 2 USB-C ports, one on the bottom and one on the top for plugging in accessories like that camera. And I think that's basically all the major stuff. Yeah, I mean, of course, if you think of anything else as you're talking about your thoughts, you can go ahead and do that. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, actually a couple things here, and I don't know if you wanted to talk about this with the system itself or later on, but one thing that was mentioned was that the dock has a built-in fan now,
That's
so
right.
it
Yeah.
cools down your system, which I think is actually pretty good. It's a great idea, especially since you're going to have the system use more power when it's docked, and it's going to be more demanding because it's utilizing higher resolution. So it'll definitely run hotter. I think it's great that they have a fan built into the dock to help keep it cool. Additionally, the Pro controllers also have buttons on the back, what they call G buttons. So I think that's pretty cool, having those paddles on the back. It's something that I think more controllers should have without needing to buy, Xbox Elite controllers or buying DualSense controllers just to get, or not DualSense, but whatever the equivalent of an Elite controller is for PlayStation, just to get those back pedal buttons. And then I couldn't find the same where. Do you know if the control or if the Joy-Con sticks use Hall sticks or Hall effect sticks or anything like that?
They did not say, and honestly, I forgot to look it up.
Okay. Yeah, because I couldn't find anything, and I was really hoping that they implemented the Hall effect joysticks, because that would be perfect if they could do that, and so that way we can lay this joystick drift to rest. But just in general as a whole, I love most of the improvements. Now, I think 1080p for the handheld screen is a bit overkill. I personally, I think 720p is fine. I really didn't have any problems with that at all. I think that if they kept the 720p to prolong the battery life, that would have been fine. But I'm not going to complain about it being 1080p because it's still better. It's definitely very ambitious for them to, well, I thought it was ambitious for them to output 4K for games. And I thought, you've got the PS5 Pro out here not doing 4K all the time, and you want to put 4K from a handheld. I mean, yes, there will be certain games in which they've shown that will be able to do 4K, but I really would have liked them to have just said, hey, we're just going to do like 1080p, everything's like 60 FPS here. Like, you won't have to worry about anything at all not reaching that point. And, or maybe even say, we're going to do 1440p. I still think 4K is too ambitious for virtually any platform. And I will even say on PC as well. I think that 4K, we're just not there at a point where we can consistently do 4K. Now, sure, if you have a big beefy GPU, you'll be doing 4K a good portion of the time, and you'll most likely even be doing 60 FPS as well. But once you factor other aspects, especially with like ray tracing, you're not going to be getting that 60 FPS without using some sort of upscaling techniques whatsoever. So that's my disdain for that. However, it was more impressive with the fact that they're targeting 120 frames per second. I was like, whoa, Nintendo, what have you been doing? I mean, it's like Popeye got spinach all of a sudden, and it's just, going to town. But that being said, though, I want to know what happened to those fanboys who've been years for saying, oh, there's something wrong with 30 FPS. Everyone's talking about 30 FPS. These games are fun. Who cares about your 60 FPS? But you know what? All of a sudden, these older games, from the Switch that weren't getting 60 FPS, they're getting 60 FPS more. And then all of a sudden, oh wow, these games are great. We're getting these good stuff. I mean, you people are talking about emulating these games, getting higher frame rates. We don't need those. We've got the good games. And all of a sudden, well, what's happening now, huh? Now all of a sudden, frame rate matters. Now that Nintendo's actually giving it to you. But that being said, though, I am glad that better performance is coming. I think it's great. However, and well, that'll probably be something which we come back to later on with talking about some of the other aspects of the Switch. So I won't say anything there, but I do think it's very ambitious that they're targeting 120 FPS. I think it's great. And, I mean, sure, that would be if you're playing at 1080p, but still, just to hit 120 frames per second, like, that's something that other consoles didn't do until, this current generation.
Right.
I mean, so like for Nintendo to going to maybe we'll hit 60 FPS, we're not certain. We might try doing that here and there, to going, hey, guys, guess what? We've got 120 frames per second on the board right now. All right, go ahead, set yourselves up, have a good time. So kudos to them for that. That definitely was not on my bingo card for eternity. But hey, there you go. Now, actually, one more question I actually have. Have you seen anything that mentioned the battery life? I am curious about that now.
No, I didn't see anything about it.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's everything I have to say about it. But I mean, just in general, I think the improvements are better. I'm sorry. One final question now. This is the actual last one. Do you know? Because they did mention, of course, that the storage is upgraded to 256 gigs. Do you know if it's using an SSD? I feel like it would be.
They did not say, but I think it's just flash storage.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I was hoping it would be, because I mean, considering the fact that they were mentioning how you have to use like Express micro SD cards, and they were talking about how
Right.
their cartridges, Switch 2 cartridges, were using faster reads and stuff like that. I was kind of expecting that they would be saying, hey, we're using PCIe, or maybe like the mini one that the Steam Deck and Ally use, like that type of SSD. So like, hey, we're using SSD to get faster reads and writes and stuff like that. But I guess Flash is okay.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's all I've
they didn't mention one way or the other, so I'm sure we'll find out about that soon enough. All right, so in terms of like all the different features they've revealed, of course, we knew about a lot of these features beforehand in terms of all the big changes. Obviously, the 120 hertz screen, just the fact that they're even targeting 120 frames per second is fantastic. I'm really glad that they're doing that, and I think that it will happen more in first-party Nintendo games than anywhere else. I mean, you could probably get it in like some of the like 2D games, that sort of thing, like from like indies and that sort of indies and stuff. But it's obviously not necessarily like something we're going to see in the big AAA games. I mean, the big AAA games, I would still be surprised if we get better than 30 frames per second. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that, but nevertheless, I think it's great that that exists. Now, what I will also say is that as disappointed as I am about not having an OLED screen, we basically knew that was going to be the case, but I am really happy about the HDR because that helps a lot with making up for the lack of OLED, because HDR is really nice. I've been enjoying it on my Steam Deck and enjoying it with my new monitor. And so those things are really nice. I like the fact that everything is bigger joysticks, bigger face buttons, all that stuff. That'll be really nice because my hands are big and the Joy-Cons are very small. The Joy-Con 2s are still pretty small, but they're not as small. I'm still not convinced on how comfortable it is going to be to hold the mouse or hold the Joy-Con in mouse mode, especially because the way that they showed it was basically the person had their index finger on the button, but then the rest of their fingers all wrapped around the side of the Joy-Con, and I'm like, that is going to give me hand cramps so fast. Especially because, when I hold a mouse, I always have both my index and my middle finger on my mouse. So we'll see with that. Now, that being said, one of the games we'll be talking about later is going to be amazing with a mouse, I think. Or at least I think it's going to be a whole lot better to control with mouse mode, theoretically. So I'm looking forward to checking that out. But, let me think here. The improvements, I mean, like the 3D audio, I think is kind of cool, but I don't play all that much with headphones on when I play the Switch, so we'll see how much I can actually take advantage of that. I don't care about the microphone. Having the extra USB-C port's cool, although I still have the little adapter thing I got from my original Switch that basically made it so that it was easier to plug it in while it was in tabletop mode. So I do think I may use tabletop mode a bit more because of the mouse mode. Having the additional storage is nice. Not really a huge fan of having to buy new micro SD cards, but realistically I probably would have to anyway, so it's not a huge deal. I don't care about 4K because I don't have any 4K screens, but I do think it's great that they also support 1440p right out the gate, which, like, even the PS5 didn't support 1440p out of the gate. I mean, they do now, but they didn't when they launched. Having the fan in the dock makes sense because if you're going to be doing 4K, it makes a lot of sense to actually do that. I don't think I have anything else to say specifically about the Switch hardware, other than the fact that I am really happy that Nintendo is making these efforts, and I'm looking forward to seeing what some of these games that they've announced, how well they're going to play on the Switch 2, and I'm hoping that they play better than the Steam Deck, because if they do, that just means Valve will have to up their game and give us an even better product with the Steam Deck 2. So even if they're not directly competing, I don't care. It'll give them basically say, guess what? There's a new baseline. You got to exceed that.
Very true.
All right. Any other thoughts on that before we move on to the next part?
No, sir.
All right. So one of the next things that came up was regarding the Switch 2 game cartridges. And I don't want to get too much in the weeds with all these topics, but I do think this one's kind of relevant to talk about. One of the things that they said with the Switch 2 game cartridges, for starters, they're exactly the same shape and size as the original Switch cartridges. They're just red now. And of course, have a Nintendo Switch 2 logo. But the other thing that came out that we found on their website after the fact is that there are plenty of games that, well, I shouldn't say plenty. There are some games that have more data than what fits on the cartridge, or it probably in many cases will just be more data than they're willing to put on the cartridge, or they'll just use a cheap cartridge. And so basically it will act as a key that when you plug it into your Switch 2, it will download the game data. And it will be marked on the cases if it's going to require a download. Basically, it's, at least from what I can tell, it's more or less the same thing as what we have right now with certain Switch games, just explained a little better. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
This feels ridiculous. The fact that, sure, it's technically the same thing we're dealing with, but the fact remains that you're still paying more for these games than you normally would, and it's like you're paying the extra money for something that essentially is just a digital game. Essentially, I mean, it's not like you're paying less. You're paying the full physical price, but you're getting essentially the digital experience, which is ridiculous to say the least. And it also makes me wonder. Now, granted, I don't know how this works with certain games we have right now, at least on the current Switch, because I don't have any that, or never had any that utilize that. But say you want to lend the game, or say you want to trade the game, sell the game, whatever, you're giving it away to someone else. How would that work for someone who buys the game, a friend who's borrowing the game, or something like that? Like, if the game is the data like locked to a specific account where, okay, the game cartridge is associated with this Nintendo Switch account. Because of that, all the data will be associated with this account. So even if someone puts the cartridge in another account, because that key has been registered for that account, can someone else use the key or not? Like, that's something that is concerning to me. But I mean, I still just think as a whole, it's just very convoluted and it's just ridiculous. Especially with some of these games where, as you said, they could definitely fit on a single cartridge. Like Bravely Default is a game you could get on a single cartridge, but they have that game as a key. So you have to download all the data rather than just having it right on the cartridge, which is ridiculous to me. And yeah, I just think that's dumb. And I guess on a slightly related topic, I don't know if you've seen the Switch cases, or at least the box cases yet or not. Like,
I think so.
Yeah, like I'll see if I can quickly send you a couple, or at least a comparison, because I actually did get to see a comparison between Metroid Prime 4 on the Switch versus the Switch 2. And while I understand they do want to have some difference there on the cartridge, or on the box, just because they don't want people to get confused and buy the wrong version or something like that, I think that it's kind of, the design is just worse versus the Switch version, because, you know, it just has a whole lot of stuff that's so unnecessary. Like, whoops. Is that attaching? It should be attaching. Okay, let's see if that goes through. Yeah, so like that should be popping up on your screen now, so you can see the differences between both versions. And it's just like, I don't know, it just doesn't look that good to me compared with the original Switch version. But I mean, at least, you know, they are doing something different. I was a bit surprised. I mean, I was kind of expecting them to do the 3DS thing where they have like a tab that prevents you from inserting a Switch 2 cartridge into a Switch, into an original Switch. But yeah, I think that having it red's gonna be fine enough for people to know, hey, this one's different. But I mean, yeah, that's essentially everything I have to say about the whole cartridge fiasco.
Yeah, from my understanding, it's not going to be every game that's like that. It's just games that are larger games that won't fit on a cartridge. Like, it's probably going to be games like, well, basically some of the big AAA games that we'll talk about a bit later, that will more likely than not do that. Now, as for how it's going to work with whether it's, you know, per console and that sort of thing, I think it's going to vary by game, from game to game. Because there are some games that I have that are like that, where you have to enter a code on the eShop in order to be able to download the game. But then there's other examples where you plug in the cartridge and then it just downloads the games. And it doesn't seem to be specific to a console. I guess I actually haven't tested it out, and maybe I need to do that, but like, as an example, the Metal Gear Solid HD collection. When I plugged that into my Switch, I didn't have to put any codes in, it just started downloading the games immediately. I need to see if that works on the other Switch as well, because if it does, then that means that it's actually worth something, even though you still have to... I mean, it's worth something as long as you still have the ability to download the stuff. So there's that, at least. Now, in terms of the difference in the boxes, I mean, like, I think I actually would really like the design for the Switch 2 box, except for the fact that it has so much information on the bottom of the case, and I just think that's way too busy. Whereas the basic Switch case is much more like... It's nicer, because it doesn't have that banner across the bottom. And for at least with Metroid Prime 4, all it is it's just saying, oh, this includes the base game plus the upgrade pack. So, from that standpoint, it's cool. I know one thing, for me, I'm just getting the Switch 1 version of Metroid Prime 4, and the main reason for that, I mean, I'll probably do the upgrade, assuming it's not ridiculous in price, which we'll find out. But it's primarily because of the fact that way I know that it works in any console. It works in both the regular Switch and the Switch 2. It's possible I'll change my mind on that. Honestly, I just need to see what the difference is in price, because if I just pay if I'm paying $10 to upgrade, if it's like, okay, the base game is $60 and then it's $10 to upgrade, it's like, okay, I can swallow that. But if it's like base game is $60, and then you're paying $30 to upgrade. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. I'll live with the 60 frames per second and not having the mouse controls. But anyway, that's really all I have to say on that cartridge front. There's some interesting things with this, and we'll probably come across more of them as I'm going through this presentation here. Just briefly, I want to mention, because you already talked about it, but it just came up in the presentation on the video here, is the Switch 2 Pro controller. Looks great. I'm hoping that the D-pad's going to be better, because the D-pad on the regular Pro controller is not great, particularly for platformers, which is really, whenever I play a platformer, unless it doesn't have D-pad controls, I always use the D-pad, because it's way better for platformers. But I love the fact that it has back buttons, because I have gotten hooked on using back buttons when playing with the, with the Steam Deck. And yeah, it's only 2, but I mean, realistically, most of the time I'm only using 2 anyway. Having the extra ones is nice, but it's more just a bonus. So I'll take 2 and make that more of a standardized thing. Would be great the more that comes up. So, the release date, June 5th. Any thoughts on that at all?
No. I mean, it's roughly. I mean, I think there were a couple rumors saying it was going to be June, so definitely was close in that regard. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have too much to say. I think it's 2 months away, so it's not like we're gonna have to wait too long for the release of that. Yeah.
Are you thinking of doing a midnight launch, or are you just gonna do online, or a combination of both?
For buying it. I don't know. I think I might just wait. Primarily because I was hoping to see a Metroid bundle. That would have been a guarantee for me.
That makes sense.
That would have been a guarantee for me right off the bat. If they had Metroid bundled, I would have bought that. Honestly, if I buy it, I'm going to wait, because for one thing, $450 is more than I would want to spend right now on it. And
yeah.
I don't think I would really even utilize it all that much anyway. So I think it's definitely something where if I buy one, it's going to be down the road later on. Because similar to you, I'm fine with the 60 FPS for the base Switch. I'm fine with that, with not getting the other features of it. So I'll most likely just be waiting to get one.
All right, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, so I've already said I am going to get one at launch. I haven't decided if I'm doing the midnight thing. Part of it depends on whether or not I can actually manage to secure a pre-order. My intention is I'm going to pre-order it when it's available, which is next Wednesday. Yeah, the 9th. June 9th is when not June 9th. April 9th is when pre-orders go live online. Depending on whether or not the bots get everything before I get a chance. If I can pre-order through Best Buy, then I'm probably going to do that. I'll probably try to do a store pickup, and then I would just go like last minute at midnight and walk in and pick one up. Pick my pre-order up. But so the $450 price, I mean, it is a bit pricey, but for one, I do think there's enough improvements here to where it'll be worth it. I'm not a fan, of course, of the game prices. I think that's ridiculous. Like the hardware, it makes sense for it to be more expensive. It's a lot more powerful than the regular Switch, and I think it's going to be overall a worthwhile system. I'm looking forward to playing it, and even if I don't necessarily grab one of the launch Switch 2 games, I should at minimum, I will be able to play Tears of the Kingdom at a better frame rate, and I can go back to that and work on that. and we'll kind of get into some of the upgrade path stuff later on. I will say that I'm at least interested in this and planning to grab it at that time. So we'll see beyond that. And I think also the fact that my kids have been playing the Switch so much lately that it's like I basically either I have to keep sharing a Switch and get to play it occasionally, or I can be a nice dad and let them play the Switch, and then I just get my own separate one. If I'm going to get my own separate one, it might as well be the upgraded version. I mean, I'm losing the OLED screen, but, you know, realistically, I could just play it on my monitor. Then I can do 1440p with OLED and HDR. And if I don't want to do that, if I don't want to play it on the monitor, I want to play it on the handheld instead, you know, I still get 1080p and HDR. In some games, 120 frames per second, which actually would probably be 720p, 120, but I mean, shoot, 120 is fantastic. So I don't think most games are going to do that, but you know, anyway, I'm not going to get any more into that. So, okay, so yeah, I guess now we are getting into the Nintendo Switch upgrade stuff. So, the gist of this is that there are certain games that are going to have Nintendo Switch 2 versions, which primarily it's just you can upgrade. I mean, if you don't already have the game, I think you'll be able to buy just the Switch 2 version if you want, just like has been the case with most console things. If you already have the game, you can just do upgrades, and those upgrades will include usually improved visuals, or improved resolution, improved frame rate, and then sometimes additional game modes. We don't know what all of them are necessarily going to have, but most noteworthy, at least in my opinion, are that both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are going to have those improved everything, which, the frame rate being the biggest thing. They didn't say what the frame rate's going to be. It should be 60 frames per second. I can't imagine it would go up to 120 because of those open worlds being a lot more complicated. But still, 60 frames per second is great. We don't know what these upgrade costs are going to be. We do know that, at least with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, if you already have a Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, then you will be able to play those upgraded versions without any additional cost to you. If you don't have it, you'll just have to pay for the upgrade path, and I don't know what that's going to cost. They haven't said anything about it. I believe there's going to be more games that will have the quote-unquote free upgrades. I'm not sure how many of them require having the expansion pack versus just being able to do them in general. But Nintendo unfortunately doesn't have a whole lot of information on their website that I could find. So it's possible I was looking in the wrong spot. Their site's still not laid out very well. But I think that's pretty much everything with that. So what are your thoughts?
So I definitely like that these games are going to be getting improvements. And it's definitely great that, it's definitely something which we talked about before, wondering like, hey, are these older Switch games going to be, getting improvements, getting better performance, visuals, whatnot on the Switch 2, and, they confirmed that it is actually happening for games, and, that's great. Of course, getting the backwards compatibility is good, but if you're actually able to get better performance, that's also a huge plus. I am skeptical about some of the price, if how the pricing is going to be.
Right.
That is in fact like however though, like a couple things, because I was trying to find this here. So they do have available for purchase upgrade versions of Switch games. So if Breath of the Wild, you can buy that for the Switch 2 and it comes with the upgrade path. I'm not hopeful for the upgrades being that reasonable, because Breath of the Wild Switch 2 edition, if you buy it, the price is $70.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which I'm just like, that is some Sony Last of Us remastered shenanigans right there. Because
I
buying,
wouldn't go that far, but the main reason why I wouldn't do that is because The Last of Us Part 2 stuff, the game was already 60 FPS on the PS5 with free updates. And then they added a mode that nobody asked for that looked like it was half baked. They threw in a couple of maps that were like basically just exploring and didn't actually add anything to the game. And the visuals weren't upgraded at all. This, at least, it is more significant upgrades, I think. Now, and if you're thinking about the fact that it's basically a $10 upgrade, I think that's a bit different than what you're getting with Last of Us Part 2 remastered, where it basically was barely an upgrade at all. Didn't he? I mean, yes, of course, obviously the ideal would be if they just gave it to us for free. I mean, that's what they should do. Or at least if they did the frame rate boost for free, I would just take the frame rate boost and call it good. But anyway.
well, my big gripe, or one of the biggest gripes, is the fact that this is, let's see, it's 2025. This is an 8-year-old game, and we're paying, you'd have to spend $70 for the game if you bought it completely new, which I'm like, I wouldn't like it, but I could at least tolerate the idea of them charging $60 for it. But to charge $70 for the game, I do not like that at all. And I mean, it makes me also wonder what they're going to do for other Switch games that are getting, the upgrades, which kind of makes me wonder if Metroid Prime 4 Switch Edition is going to be $70. As far as like, you have 60 for the Switch version and then $70 for the Switch 2 version. In which case, I would probably pick up the Switch 2 version down the road. Even if I don't, buy a Switch 2 right away, just because I am such a Metroid fanboy that I have to have that Switch 2 version. Even if it's just sealed, I just want to say, this is part of my collection. But I mean, and even then still, I could tolerate it more because it is a new game.
Yeah.
But the fact that you have, like I said, an 8-year-old game coming out now, and it's, if you buy it completely new, it's $70. That I believe is ridiculous. Right there. Like I said, I feel like at most it should be $50 if you bought it new with the upgrade path. I could tolerate it being 60, but 70 is just a no for me. But I think just in general, as far as upgrades go, I do like that we are getting these upgrades coming. Of course, they'll share more information as far as which games are going to be getting it, and then also in what regards. So it'll definitely be interesting seeing what happens down the road. Of course, probably not. Oh, and of course, they also, I think, mentioned Pokemon ZA is getting that as well, and also getting, the upgraded frame rate, which, is one of the things that people were complaining about with Pokemon games on the Switch, and, some people were saying, oh, it's fine, but, now they're getting the patches for it, so they'll say, see, Nintendo's looking out for us now. But, yeah, I think this is great for people who have the games and want to be able to get better performance out of them. It's definitely good. And I mean, if you have NSO, you won't have to worry about, paying extra for it. Although, one thing I was curious about, though, is if you have NSO and you get the upgrade and say you cancel your subscription, do you still get to keep the upgrade?
Not it only if you pay for it separately, because you can still purchase the upgrade separately. It's just that if you have NSO, you don't have to pay anything extra for it. So basically, like, as an example, there was some additional content added to Animal Crossing New Horizons, which, my wife plays heavily. And I never purchased that extra content, but because of the fact that we have the Switch Online subscription, it's included. So if I wanted to actually own that content, as much as you can own a digital game, then I would just have to purchase it separately, and then I could cancel, NSO and not worry about it.
Okay.
And I think that that's exactly what it is in this case as well.
Okay. Okay, that's cool. Because I was very curious about that, because I was wondering, hey, if I say, try it out, I think they have a trial or something like that, like a 7 or 14-day trial. I was wondering, it's like, hey, if I were to buy Metroid Prime 4, get NSO, and, try out...
I don't think it's going to be for Metroid Prime 4.
Okay.
I think they're going to do it with older games, and I know they're doing it with both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom because they specifically mentioned those, but Metroid Prime 4 isn't going to have that upgrade for free.
Well, it was worth a shot.
For quote-unquote free. But speaking of Metroid Prime 4, of course, we can talk a little bit about the actual, reveal, the second trailer that they did last week as well, if you'd like, but gotta talk first and foremost from the presentation today, the fact that the base version of the game, on the Switch 2, in quality mode, you're still getting 4K 60 FPS with HDR when docked. In handheld, it's 1080p 60 FPS with HDR. But if you want to do performance mode, in docked, that's 1080p 120 FPS HDR, and handheld, it's 720p 120 FPS HDR. And of course, knowing what it is that Retro was able to do with Metroid Prime Remastered, the fact that they got 60 FPS and the game looks amazing on the original Switch, and the fact that they're, doing the same thing for Metroid Prime 4. This isn't surprising to me, but at the same time, it is, because I did not see Nintendo actually doing 120 FPS. And I guess I basically shared my thoughts before you had to share yours, but you're the fanboy, so... Or you're the Metroid fanboy, so I definitely need to... I guess the last thing I want to mention with that is the fact that it also supports the Joy-Con mouse controls, which could end up being very, very cool to use, depending on how comfortable it is. So, that's basically my thoughts on it. I might say a little bit more after you have a chance to talk.
Yeah, I was completely blown away by the fact that the game is going to run so much better than I would ever imagine. I thought, sure, maybe... of course, the standard Switch was going to be... I'm pretty certain it was confirmed to be running 1080p 60 FPS, which was essentially the same as Metroid Prime Remastered. So, I don't know why, but my mind thought, yeah, it's going to be more or less the same. They're not going to do that much for the Switch 2. No big deal. They completely blew my expectations out of the water. Who would have thought we would be playing Metroid Prime on a Nintendo console at 4K 60?
Yeah.
Or 1080p 120 FPS. Right. And then having that same type of frame rate available in handheld mode. That is insane. They really did a great job with optimizing this game. I'll tell you what, and it's just incredible. And I do appreciate the fact that they are, and this is something that you even mentioned before, was about potentially using the Joy-Cons as a mouse for Metroid Prime, and lo and behold, they did do it. So I definitely feel like there are definitely a whole lot of people who really liked using mouse or Joy-Con, or not Joy-Cons, but the Wii Remote for Metroid Prime Trilogy, because they liked using
Yeah.
that for better accuracy. And that's why for people who played it on emulators, they would like to use mouse and keyboard because they like to use the mouse for better accuracy. So having that available for Metroid Prime 4 is definitely going to be great for them. Definitely being able to use it that way. Now, personally speaking, unfortunately, I still have my console bad habits, so I'm going to be using a controller for that. But I really appreciate the fact that they added that as an additional feature. Yeah, I mean, like, of course, some people still probably might be wanting to use the Joy-Cons, sort of like the Wii Remote in that aspect, using the gyro. And I do, well, I'm actually very curious now because this sort of goes into the gameplay aspects they showed last week, and I'm wondering how they're going to tie that in with the mouse controls, because they did say that in addition to moving it around as a mouse, you could also use the gyro controls within the Joy-Con to twist it as well. So because of the fact that, as last week they showed that you can manipulate your beams, I'm wondering if you can actually sort of manipulate them by twisting the Joy-Con in addition to moving it around.
Probably.
That could make things interesting. So I guess we'll definitely have to wait and see in that aspect. And because it has mouse support, and of course, they haven't said anything so far, but it kind of makes me wonder if they would, also because of the fact that they are trying to sort of emphasize more about the online aspects via, voice chat and stuff, if they will try to bring back what they did in Prime Echoes, where they have multiplayer. That would be pretty cool to have, playing some, I guess, Joy-Con mouse keyboard with your friends in a multiplayer match. That would be pretty cool. Oh man, I kind of want that now to have multiplayer in that. But yeah, I definitely like what they did with the game and what they've done, and what I saw last week in the Switch Direct, I definitely enjoyed. I'm partially skeptical about being able to control your beam blasts. I'm not certain if I feel if that's a bit gimmicky. But I'm still just hyped for this game, and I'm glad that it's coming. Now, actually, one question: did they give a release date for Prime 4? Because that is the one thing they didn't confirm, if it was going to be a launch game or not.
No, it's not. They didn't mention a release date at all. And there's still nothing listed, so I'm assuming that it's probably just going to be like late summer, early fall. Probably whenever we get the next actual Direct, we'll get a release date, but my guess is they just decided not to make this a launch title since there's already plenty of stuff coming.
Okay, I guess I can wait some more. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing I really have to add to what I already said is that I will probably be trying out that 120 FPS mode, because I think that's going to be really, really sweet, because I know how great 120 is, being a PC gamer. I only wish that this thing had like support for an actual mouse and not just the Joy-Con mouse, because while there are things that will work great with the Joy-Con mouse, particularly having, the face buttons being just like, thumb buttons you would have on a normal mouse, it's still the fact that that thing is so tiny and I have big hands. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I was completely blown away. I was not expecting any of that. I mean, like, I knew 60 FPS was gonna happen because we already knew it was gonna be on the base Switch. I just didn't expect to go any further than that. And even though it makes sense just knowing what Retro is capable of and how much more powerful the Switch 2 is than the Switch 1, it still is just a very pleasant surprise, because I just didn't see Nintendo actually moving in that positive direction. So, and this is probably one of the few games that I believe will legitimately maintain that 120 frames per second, just because of how good retro is with these kinds of things. I think Mario Kart will probably do it as well, at least when you're doing single player. Once you start incorporating split screen, it's probably going to go down a bit, but I mean, there's a potential that they could still maintain 60 with split screen. Because right now, because Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I'm pretty sure drops to 30 when you do split screen. So, yeah. But anyway. All right. So let's see what else we got here. Definitely have some more stuff. Try to see if there's any other like big things. Oh, there's the wheelchair basketball game. What did you think of that? It uses both Joy-Cons as the mice thing. Yeah.
It's interesting because it definitely answered the question I had, which was what game would use both Joy-Cons as mice? Because they did mention saying, hey, both Joy-Cons can be used as mice. And I was wondering, what how would you even do that? And so they showed that later on. I thought, okay, that's interesting. I mean, I'm not certain if that's my type of game that I would play, but it at least answered my question, so I will say that.
How much do you want to bet that someone's going to call this woke because it has a disabled?
Yeah, I definitely feel like the likelihood of that happening is at least 70-75% of happening. I think that's definitely going to happen at some point.
Yeah, for sure. Plenty of people who feel the need to do that because it gets clicks. And, yeah. I will just say right now, this is definitely not woke. Not in any way, shape, or form. This is just Nintendo doing Nintendo gimmicks. And to me, this feels very much like what ARMS was on the Switch. Where, not that it was poorly designed, but I just did not like that game. I tried it out, and I didn't like the controls. It just wasn't for me. And this one looks like it's basically the same thing. It's like, you're doing this weird thing. It's like you have to have like a very specific setup. This is not going to work well when you're like playing on a couch or anything for the most part. It's just kind of like you basically have to be playing in tabletop mode or happen to have a solid table in front of you to really be able to play this properly. And it's just like, this is gimmick of gimmicks. All right, so now we're going to start getting into some of the big third-party games, and I gotta say, the very first reveal, I called it 100%, and I was so happy to see it. That is Elden Ring, and no idea how it's going to run, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, as you said, someone should pick up the phone because you called it, and you were right. I definitely wasn't expecting it to be the first third-party game they showed off. I do think it's great that they are including the DLC with the base game, so you have an all-in-one bundle. That's definitely good. I agree. I'm not certain how the game will run, but if I had to take a guess, I mean, maybe. I mean, okay. Quick question, just before I answer my own question: was this available? Was Elden Ring was on the PS4 and Xbox One, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in that case, I'm gonna say maybe it'll be running at 1080p 40, just because maybe the game, I mean the Switch 2, I mean, granted we don't have anything concrete yet, but if I had to just go out on a limb, considering the fact that the Steam Deck is roughly maybe around a base PS4, I definitely feel like the Switch 2 is more powerful than a Steam Deck, so I would say that maybe it could be in the ballpark range of under a Series S, or maybe somewhere between a PS4 Pro, maybe in that a PS4 Pro underneath a Series S, in that ballpark range. So I think it definitely can do 1080p 30, but I feel like it should be able to do more than that. And actually, to be honest, I mean, yeah. I'm gonna say maybe 1080p 40 at most, maybe 50 FPS. That's gonna be my bet there. And of course, maybe some things might vary depending on your location and what you're doing, but I mean, I think it's just great that we've got the game coming over here. And correct me if I'm wrong, or at least in case I missed it. Are there going to be any amiibo for this game, like there was with Dark Souls?
Any yet, but there's supposed to be. Actually, never mind. That's for a different game. I was going to say that there's a developer interview related to this game, but then I remember no, that's a different game we'll talk about later. So. As far as I know, they didn't announce any. That doesn't mean there won't be any. It would be cool if there was, but... Alright, well, as for my thoughts about this, I think it's fantastic that it's coming over, that it includes everything. I have a feeling that, at least physical, this is probably going to be $90. This is one game where I'm actually okay with that price. Not that I should say... I'm more okay with that price for this game than I am for Mario Kart World. That being said, I'd rather it be $70 and it includes everything. I just can't see that happening, especially since the DLC just came out last year, and I don't think it's gotten discounted a whole lot. So, but yeah, I think this is cool. I'm looking forward to doing the comparison with this. And just, seeing how it turns out. I hope it runs better than it does on the Steam Deck. Because once again, even though they're not directly competing, if it runs better on the Switch 2 than it does on the Steam Deck, that just pushes Valve to make better hardware the next time that they release another Steam Deck. So, good stuff. All right, let's see what we have next. Oh, yes, Hades 2 got confirmed for the Switch 2 as well, which, as far as I know, right now, it's not even on other consoles yet. So it'll be much like it was with the first Hades game, where Switch was the second place it came to after PC. But as far as I can tell, this is the full version, like that the game is actually done now. It's no longer in early access, or at least it won't be in early access when it comes out on Switch 2. Any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I think it's definitely great. Glad that's coming over, and probably come to other consoles later on. I feel like this is definitely a game that should be getting 120 frames per second. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, definitely glad that this is coming over there as well.
Yep, for sure. Next thing that they showed was some Capcom titles. First of all, being Street Fighter 6, which personally I don't care about, but do you care about this one?
Not necessarily. I mean, I've played a few of the older ones, but I'm not really a Street Fighter person.
Yeah, Street Fighter is getting some amiibo. And also, this one's launching with Switch 2. I believe Hades 2 is also launching with Switch 2. But then the next game that they showed was something that I think would be very much a you game. That's Daemon X Machina. It's not Daemon X Machina 2, but it's basically the sequel. So, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, glad we got some more footage. I wish we had more details, but it definitely looks good. I'm hoping that they improve a lot of the gameplay elements though from the first game, because it was an okay experience, but it just wasn't a lasting experience. And so I hope they add a lot of replayability. I hope that they improve the online aspects as well, because that was probably some of the most repetitive stuff I've had to do, and especially considering the fact that there was barely anyone to actually play the online stuff with. It just needs a whole overhaul in that arena. So hopefully this is better. This won't be a game I get day one because I just want to see how they do, and also I feel like there are other games, especially in this genre, that I could be playing that I'll probably play before I play that. So this is going to be something that I play once it's probably 50% off or something like that. But definitely looks good so far though.
Yeah, visually I'm impressed with it. It looks way better than the first game did. I mean, I'm very impressed with it, and I'm still a little skeptical about it, mostly because the gameplay I played of the first one, I did not like the gameplay. It did not have the feel that I was looking for, whereas like the little bit I played of Armored Core 6 had exactly the feel I was looking for, and the little tiny bit I played of Zone of the Enders, Mars, whatever it's called, that one also had the kind of mech gameplay that I was looking for. So this one will have to prove itself to me. I'd probably check out the demo, but I'm skeptical. I remain very cautiously pessimistic on the matter. So, but once again, I have other mech games I can play that will be great. Which reminds me, I did actually grab the PS3 version of the Zone of the Enders earlier games that were upgraded from the PS2, so that I could emulate those eventually on Steam Deck, because I want to play those before I play the one I have, because the one I have takes place after those other ones. So.
Oh, and I guess I'll just quickly mention that unlike the first Daemon X Machina, this one has already been confirmed to be multi-plat upon release, so it's not like it's gonna be a timed exclusive. So that's good at least.
That's very good. All right. Now let's see here. Moving on, we got Split Fiction confirmed as being day one on Switch 2. I guess I'll just briefly say, I mean, looks cool. I mean, I already was interested in the game anyway, but it's not something where I'm like, oh, I'm going to buy this because for the same reason that I already hadn't bought it yet and wasn't planning to buy it anytime soon. Because I think it looks like a lot of fun, but I have to have someone that I actually want to play with, and I'm not really sure if it will work for that. I guess I could potentially look into seeing if this would work, like playing with my oldest son maybe, but that's about the only way I can think of, unless I can just talk my wife into trying it out. But even then, I would probably just get it on PC. So, do you have any thoughts about that?
No, sir. Just good thing that's coming over to Switch.
All right, we got confirmation of both Madden and EAFC coming over to Switch. I'm guessing you don't care about either of those either?
Nah.
Hogwarts Legacy is getting an upgrade pack for Switch 2 on day one. Looks a lot better than the base Switch version, like dramatically so. I'm guessing you don't have any thoughts on that otherwise, though, or...
Nah, I just think it's good that they're getting this game at a better performance and visuals.
Yeah, I honestly, I like halfway want to grab it just to do a comparison between Switch 1 and Switch 2, because I think that could be even more fun to do. But I already grabbed it on Steam pretty recently. I just haven't played it yet. So then we got Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 shown for the Switch 2. Looking great. 60 frames per second at least. Well, I assume it's just 60 frames per second. Unlike the Switch 1 versions of 1 and 2, which were 30. But have you ever really been into the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games?
I played a little bit of one of them on the PS2, although I didn't really play too much of that. But it was interesting enough.
Yeah, I loved 1 and 2 back on the PS1 days, but I never... like, when I tried getting the Switch version of 1 and 2 when they did the remaster, I wanted to like it because I loved those games originally, but they changed one aspect of the mechanics that just made it that I was having a hard time. And that is how it used to be, is you'd go off a jump and then you'd automatically just, as long as you weren't sideways, you would just land normally and you'd be fine. And then you could, continue on. But if you don't make sure that you, on the remasters, if you don't make sure that you're tipping downward or that you tap down, then it won't straighten you out, and then you just fall. And I didn't play anything beyond that because of that. I found that extremely annoying.
Did they do that like in the remaster version to like make it easier to do stunts or anything like that, or is it just?
I don't think so. I think that they just add that as more of like a to give a little more realism or something. I don't know.
Huh.
But it's something I didn't like. Kept me from actually getting into the game for real, which is unfortunate because I loved those games back on PS1. Okay, next we got confirmation of Hitman. Let's see here. What's Hitman World of Assassination Signature Edition coming over to Switch 2, followed as well by I can't remember. I think this was already announced previously, but I don't remember. The Project 007 game also coming over. Care about either of those?
Not so much the Hitman games, but I mean, similar to you, I don't recall a 007 game being made, so if this has been announced before, then I must have missed that. So I am very interested in the 007 in getting a James Bond game because it's been years since we've had one. And I mean, I feel like we could it should be decent. And I mean, I would like to see one. And I mean, granted, they probably might not do it that way, but if they do something akin to, like, say maybe one of the older ones, like the Sean Connery era, I would actually like that. I would think that would be kind of cool, having that the older retro spy setting. So I would kind of like that. But who knows? They might be doing something more of the modern ones, like with the Daniel Craig James Bond.
Yeah, it doesn't interest me all that much. I mean, the only, I mean, like the N64 one, I didn't get super far in. I did play and beat the Wii reimagining of GoldenEye that I really enjoyed. But that's about the extent of my experience with James Bond. So, I mean, it's cool that it's coming. And I don't care about Hitman. I've tried it a couple times, and it's just not for me. So, all right. But then the next thing, we got some stuff from Square Enix. I think actually the two things that they had were separated, but the next thing that they showed was just that Bravely Default, which is getting back its full title that it originally had in Japan and didn't transfer over to the US when it came to 3DS. Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster. The original game was called Bravely Default Flying Fairy, but then when it came to the US, they took off the Flying Fairy part. And but yeah, now they're remastering the 3DS game and putting it on the Switch 2. It wouldn't surprise me if this is actually also going to be on the regular Switch, but I didn't see anything confirming that one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I can't remember how much of this happened. So I did get Bravely Default at one point, but I never played too much of it, and I don't know if it's just the mechanics or not, but I just wasn't too... I guess I just didn't get it because I didn't stick with it long enough, and I just like, yeah, I guess I'll just play something else. Maybe I could give this one a try, but I'll see. But it's definitely cool that they're bringing it back. Now, I'm also curious to know if they might try to make this multi-plat, but, well,
yeah,
they
actually,
did Bravely
I can see
Second.
that happening.
Because, I mean, they did do Bravely Second for other platforms, correct? Or at least they did one of the Bravely games.
I'm pretty sure, yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure it was Bravely Default 2 that came to all platforms, or multiple platforms. Okay. I might be wrong on that, but I also don't remember.
Okay, no, you're right. Bravely Default 2 is available on other platforms. So yeah, so I mean, maybe they could bring this one also over as well. That would be cool.
Yeah. I got the Bravely Default games, got all of them last year, because I had like briefly tried the demo of the original in 3DS, and it just like I loved the visuals and everything, but the combat wasn't really grabbing me. But during that time that the 3DS eShop was shutting down and everything, and I was buying a bunch of games for it, I grabbed all of them, and I mean, I actually have physical versions of all of them. I played a little bit. I mean, I definitely played a bunch more of the original game once I got it for 3DS compared to when I just played a little bit of the demo. It's still kind of like I kind of like it. Like I love the visuals. I love the 3D. The music was pretty good. I'm just not like super enthralled with it. I kind of feel similarly about it as I did with like playing I Am Setsuna, because it was inspired by Chrono Trigger, and I hoped I would like it. And of course, when the Switch launched, I really wanted to play it because of the fact that it was something where we were pretty starved for games when the Switch first launched. There just really wasn't a whole lot there, and I ended up not really liking it very much when I beat it. So I kind of feel similarly about that, but I still want to give it a real chance. And so one of these days I'll boot up the 3DS one again. I'm not going to get it on Switch 2. It's like if it's not grabbing me on 3DS enough, then it's not going to grab me on Switch 2. So I'll probably just keep giving the 3DS version a chance and see if I can get enough into that to actually play Bravely Second and then Bravely Default 2 down the line. But that is coming out launch day, so I know some people are interested in that. Next thing we got is announcement of Yakuza 0 coming to the Switch 2. Which, I mean, I would assume that means that we'll probably end up with the other Yakuza games getting ported as well, and potentially like an upgrade for Yakuza Kiwami, I think is the one that's currently out on Switch. If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So, I know you had played one of those a couple years ago, or at least played a decent chunk of it. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's good that's coming over, getting these improvements. Although I thought Zero was on the original Switch, but I guess not. And who knows? Like maybe because of this being brought over, maybe they'll also port over 7 Like a Dragon, as well as Infinite Wealth, and then also Pirates Hawaii, and the other spin-offs, I think, which was oh man, I can't remember what it was, but it's the one where it takes place in like a shogunate Japan, that spin-off there. So maybe that would also encourage the other ports. I definitely feel like they probably would just, they might port over 1 through 6 with enhancements, and then just go ahead and say, hey, we're gonna bring over 7 Infinite Wealth and any of the other spin-off games. Oh, and also The Man Who Erased His Name.
Yeah.
But good stuff though.
Also that one is day one on Switch 2. Oh yes. Okay, so the next thing we got was the next Hyrule Warriors game, which is the imprisoning lore of for Tears of the Kingdom, basically taking place between like the past portion and the current day portion of Tears of the Kingdom. Any thoughts on that one?
Not really. I didn't play Tears of the Kingdom, and I wasn't certain if this was directly or loosely connected to it or not, so I wasn't certain what happened with the story in that aspect. So like it definitely was interesting from that aspect, not knowing what's going on, but considering the fact that I haven't played Tears of the Kingdom, I mean, granted, I'm not a big Warriors fan anyway, so I most likely would not get this. as a result, because I'm very picky with Warriors games since they're just essentially the same, with just like a different skin depending on which one you get.
Yeah, the one thing I will say about this is that visually it looks a whole lot better than the last one, but the frame rate looks really bad. Like it looks like it's 30 with stutters from the trailer. And it's possible some of that may have been an issue on YouTube's end, because I know that they were definitely having a lot of like audio sync issues and stuff throughout the presentation because of, 1.5 million people watching it all at once. But yeah, that definitely has me a bit concerned. I already say I'm not playing this one. I didn't play the last Hyrule Warriors because of the fact that it just wasn't really all for me, But it is coming this winter, so people who want to play that, it's all good for them, I guess. All right, let's see what we got next. That's just more information on the Imprisonment War. But yeah, this is story-wise, this leads into Tears of the Kingdom.
Okay.
The last one also was, I can't remember the timing of that. Anyway, okay, so now we have Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack adding a new console to the Switch 2 only, and that is the GameCube. So launch titles, we know that we're going to get Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, we're going to get F-Zero GX, and we're going to get Soul Calibur 2. I think those were the only three that they had for launch. So there's also, of course, going to be a Nintendo Switch Online GameCube controller, which will be wireless, designed more like the traditional GameCube controller versus the Wavebird, but nothing wrong with that. Okay, so we have Super Mario Sunshine, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, Super Mario Strikers, Chibi Robo, and of course it just flashed too quickly, Luigi's Mansion, Pokemon Coliseum, and it looks like that's everything they have listed so far. Alright, so GameCube games on the Switch 2. What are your thoughts?
Pretty neat. I can't remember if this was a rumor that eventually GameCube games were coming over to Nintendo Switch Online. So if there were rumors, then it's been confirmed now that that's true. It's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what games they add in the future. I feel like though, at some point though, Nintendo's going to raise the price of Nintendo Switch Online as a result of this. I don't know when, but I feel like it's just a matter of when rather than if. They sort of did that when they added the Genesis and I think N64 games, so I feel like they're going to do something similar with this, especially since it's for a new platform. I feel like they might add a price increase for that. Now, actually, one question I did have, though, is this confirmed to be exclusive to Nintendo Switch 2, or is that also available for Switch 1?
Just Switch 2.
Okay, then.
At least I'm pretty sure. It says on here, available same day as Nintendo Switch 2. I think they basically indicated that it would only be on the Switch 2.
Okay, then. All right. Then that's kind of disappointing for people who have been waiting for that. I feel like there's no reason why they couldn't put that on the base Switch. But yeah, I don't necessarily. I'm not was necessarily interested in getting that because I would just play the Switch. The GameCube games I have, and especially now with the way I have my GameCube set up now, that's not a big deal. But for people who wanted to have those games on their Switch, I can see it being disappointing if that they would have to go ahead and buy a new Switch just to play those games. But yeah.
Yep. Agreed. I'm glad that they're coming over. I kind of wish that we would just get HD versions of some of these games, especially get Wind Waker HD from the Wii U, but I mean, at this point, if they're not going to give it to us that way, then I'll probably just, next time I want to play Wind Waker, emulate it on my Steam Deck, where I already know that it works just fine there. It's like, hey, Nintendo, you're not going to give me what I want. I will just play it in the way that I can easily play it. And we'll call it good. Okay. So next thing we have is Deltarune that includes all the different stuff with that. Do you care about any of those games at all?
Not really.
Okay, so we'll just move on past that. After that, we got confirmation of Civilization 7 is getting a Switch 2 version that'll, of course, have improved visuals and frame rate. Also, allow you to use the mouse Joy-Con, so you have the intuitiveness of mouse, as these games are originally designed with PC in mind. Civ 7, is that anything you're interested in?
Not really, although I just appreciate the fact that they gave the game the mouse support, because as you said, that the game was intended with PC in mind, so I'm glad they added that feature in. So that's all I gotta say.
It looks like I accidentally skipped over it before, but Borderlands 4 is confirmed as coming to Switch 2. I believe they said it's launching with Switch 2, but I think that what they were saying by that is not that it's launching the same day as the Switch 2, but it's that it's launching the same day on Switch 2 as it is everywhere else. Which, I mean, for people who are huge Borderlands fans, I think this is fantastic. What we saw of the visuals, it looks very good on the Switch 2. I don't really have any other thoughts on that.
Yeah, same here. I have yet to start playing the Borderlands games I have, so
yeah,
nothing much for me.
I doubt I'm ever going to actually get to them, but who knows? Maybe eventually I'll actually give them a real chance. Next thing we got is confirmations of both WWE 2K and NBA 2K coming to the Switch. I'm guessing you don't care about either of those either.
No, I'm not that black.
Not black enough. Okay. I don't remember what the name of this game is. 4Kids Stranded. It's where the stream got frozen for a bit.
Oh, that's what happened.
It's just 4-player co-op survival game. I'm sure it's fun, but it's just not anything for me.
Yeah.
Survival Kids is the name of the game. And that is also a launch day Switch. Enter the Gungeon 2, I believe, is what's being shown here. And that's getting a 3D remake instead of the classic 2D thing. I mean, visually it looks cool. I'm sure those games are fun. Not anything I care about, but what about you?
Yeah, it's a similar thing. I mean, I have Enter the Gungeon, but I haven't played it yet, so I can't really say one way or another about that.
All right, next thing we had something else I don't care about. Oh, so we had another big one. A big one. And that is Cyberpunk 2077 Complete Edition Ultimate Edition is coming to the Switch. Visually looks great. No idea how it's going to run, but I'm guessing 30 frames per second based on the realities of how technology typically works. But, I would love to do a comparison between the Switch 2 and the Steam Deck, except the fact that I really don't want to buy this game or play it. And so it would be just a complete waste of money. I could refund it on Steam, but I couldn't refund it on Switch. So I'm not going to be bothering with that one. I'll let someone else do that. Do you have any thoughts on that one?
No, sir.
All right, so next we had another big one that we had both talked about in the past before, and that's Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade is coming to the Switch 2. And I don't know if they said if it was a day one thing. I don't think it is. If it was, then that would be okay, that's a good one to get on day one. But I don't think, let's see if they say when it's actually coming. Okay, they don't really have any information on it yet. They just said it's coming. They didn't even say that it's 2025. So, but any thoughts on that one?
Definitely great to see that this is coming. You know, we talked about this before, as you said, and getting confirmation that it is coming over is great. You know, it's definitely really emphasizing the fact that Sony wants to put their games on every platform. You know, they're really tired of exclusives because those don't sell so well. And actually, come to think of it, because of that mindset they have now, I am more inclined to believe that Bravely Default is possibly going to be a multi-plat game, not just be on the Switch, because they are saying like, hey, we don't want to do exclusives because, you know, it doesn't sell as well as selling on other platforms. So I mean, unless Nintendo really was trying to was really trying to like bribe them with money, they probably were just gonna say, hey, we appreciate the money, but we're just gonna put it on every platform so that way everyone gets to play and everyone gets to pay. So I feel like that's what's gonna happen there. But you know, I'm definitely glad to see this is coming over. I'm willing to believe that this is probably gonna be running at 30. I could be wrong, but I think it's probably gonna be running at 30 FPS. But I could be wrong though. And I will say that it's probably gonna be $70. That's just what I think is gonna happen. But who knows? I could be wrong. They could charge 60, but I doubt it.
I mean, as long as they don't charge $80, I am willing to go up to 70. Not that I want to. I would much rather spend 40, $50. But what I expect is it's going to be 70. And 60 would probably be okay. I think 60 would be fine, especially because, you know, this is a good game. I really, really like this game a lot. And I mostly want it to be cheaper because of the fact that if it was cheaper, then it would be easier to do a comparison. But if they at least have a physical version, even though it's not going to have the full game on the cartridge, then at least it could go on my shelf to, you know, be cool from that standpoint. But either way, I'm very curious to see how this one is going to look and run. I was pretty happy with how it was on the Steam Deck. I mean, like, visually what they showed in the trailer looked great. I think it's only running at 30 in the trailer. So that's pretty much what I'm expecting for this, because they're going to probably focus more on visuals, but they could have a performance mode too. That's very possible. But then we got a bit of a sizzle reel, and let's see. I know that they, after a while, had some new games in there. One being Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess, which we had seen a while ago, and it's that's launching. It's a Capcom action game, and launching same day on the Switch too. Hollow Knight Silksong got its little brief thing saying that it's coming out this year. We'll believe it when it actually happens. Let's see here. Story of Seasons. I don't think either of us care about that. Goodnight Universe. That one actually looks kind of fun. You are a baby who apparently has ESP. It's like a first-person baby thing where you a baby with ESP. 2 Point Museum. I'm just gonna mention all of these and then feel free to stop me if there's anything. Wild Hearts 5. I vaguely remember Wild Hearts being a thing. I just don't remember. I mean, like, I've never played any of those games. I just don't really know anything about them. Puyo Puyo Tetris. Rune Factory, Gardens of Azuma, Marvel Cosmic Invasion, which we also saw last week at the Direct, Star Wars Outlaws with the uglified chick. That one's going to be interesting to see how that looks and runs on the Switch too.
Yep.
And then Nobunaga's Ambition. Is that one you're interested in at all?
No, that's the series I never really got into just because I'm not the biggest strategy person.
Gotcha. Okay. Oh, Fast Fusion, which is from Shinen, So the same people that did Fast RMX and, well, before that, Fast Racing Neo, because I think RMX is just like a remaster of Fast Racing Neo that was on the Wii U. And they also did, what's it called? Gosh, the name's The Tourist, which was a great game. And it's one of the only games that actually natively renders at 8K on the PS5. And then downscales. Shadow Labyrinth, which is that Pac-Man game. Raito remastered The Mystery of the Soulless Army, which is an action RPG from Atlas. I think it was originally on PS2. And it's in the Shin Megami Tensei type universe with similar demons and that sort of thing. I will say with this one, I saw this one. I mean, when they showed this one at the Direct last week, I thought this looks great. I'm very interested in it. And did you have any thoughts on that one? Or any of the previous games?
Well, I haven't. Well, I still have yet to pick up a Shin Megami Tensei or Persona game, so I can't really say too much about it. But I mean, it definitely looks very interesting. It looks very cool. So I will definitely say that. If I get it, it will be something that would again be on my list of SMT Persona games to play, but I just have yet to get to.
And then they had No Sleep for Kaname Date from The Somnium Files, so the Part 3 game there, which is what motivated me to play the first one finally. A game called Reanimal, which is like a really creepy thing where your kid's running from this creepy animal thing. Fortnite looking and running a whole lot better than it did on the original Switch. Arcade Archives 2 Ridge Racer, so it looks like it's like the original arcade version of Ridge Racer. Professor Layton in the New World of Steam. Once again, feel free to stop me if I come across anything you care about. Tamagotchi Plaza. Human Fall Flat 2. And that's everything from the sizzle reel. Let's see what we got next. I think next might be the really big one. Oh yes, it is indeed. Now, I keep being unable to remember the name of this game, but it is a brand new IP from Software that is going to be exclusive to the Nintendo Switch 2, and you play as like a vampire guy, and it seems almost like it's sort of a spiritual successor in a way to Bloodborne. I'm just going to say my jaw dropped when I saw the From Software logo. And then as I'm watching this, I'm just like, what's going on here? Is this Bloodborne? And then when I realized it wasn't Bloodborne, because I mean, it didn't take too long to figure that out. I was just like, I literally, my jaw was just hanging down. I was just like, I didn't even know what to say. And then we got at the very end when they revealed the title of it, which I'll get to in the video here, and then said that it was exclusive to Switch 2. I was literally just like, I mean, like literally what I was doing. I was like shaking my hands and my body, and my jaw was dropped, and I was just like, I cannot believe this is happening. Switch 2 is getting an exclusive new IP from Software. I imagine it's probably going to be a timed exclusive, because I cannot imagine that they would keep this in only on the Switch 2, period. But even so, I'm just like, what? What? And I can't tell if you only play as this vampire guy or if you can play as one of multiple different types of characters. I think it's the latter, based on the camera angles and that sort of thing. But, I mean, holy crap. I mean, I've just basically expressed exactly how I was during this whole thing. what were your thoughts seeing this?
Yeah, I was definitely surprised about this. Like the fact that, well, first, just the fact that we're getting excluding the fact that, it being exclusive, which is a big thing by itself. The fact that a From Software game is being announced for the first time ever on a Nintendo platform. This like normally you would see something like at E3, Tokyo Game Show, the end of the Game Awards. Like I think Sekiro was announced initially. That's the type of place where you expect a new From Software game to be announced. This was announced at a Nintendo Direct of all places, and then the fact that saying it's a new IP, and it's exclusive, which blew my mind, and I really was not expecting that at all. Now, I agree with you. I don't see this being like a permanent exclusive. I could be wrong, but I don't see that happening. Like maybe a year, 2 years, then it'll like come to other platforms. But yeah, I'm just so surprised. Now, one thing that kind of I guess it tempered my expectations, or at least it would allow me to wait to get this, especially if I was going to wait for it to get ported to, like, say, PC, is the fact that it does seem to be a multiplayer-based game, sort of similar to, like, Night Rain. Night Rain. So, because of that, I could wait for it to get ported. So, like, if it was, like, say, single-player focused, then I would be thinking, I guess maybe I do have to go get a Switch too. But because of that, I thought, okay, I can wait. But at the same time, though, this just looks so good, though. And I am just so surprised that this is happening in the first place. It's just so much stuff is going on in that trailer, to be honest, that that I had to watch it, go back over again. Because I'm looking at it and thinking, there's like so much stuff going on. And then I'm just like, looks like there are different types of eras being occurring, that I'm just like, what am I watching? What's going on here? This is so different, but it looks good though. It definitely looks good. Yeah, definitely good on Nintendo for securing that one. That's how you end the showcase with a bang. At least the
right,
partner
and that's
showcase.
not even the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think this is only multiplayer, because most of the time they were showing just one character fighting. I mean, I do think you have the option of playing as one of multiple different kinds of characters. Because watching it again, it's very clear that the character. I mean, it's not the same character being shown as being controlled every time. Like there's the first guy who's like basically a vampire, and then there's like a mage lady, and there's a few different ones. But yeah, I mean, I imagine that probably. Well, I should just say, it does not look like it is multiplayer only, but the multiplayer would still be available. Like you can do co-op. At least that's what I'm getting from it. But there's going to be a developer interview, I believe, on Friday. They're going to be talking about Hidetaka Miyazaki is going to be talking about this game and going more into it. The one thing about this, though, that's very unfortunate is that it doesn't come out until next year. So, and since I didn't mention it earlier and only just saw the title and was reminded again, the game is called Dusk Bloods. I keep wanting to call it Blood Goods because that's the name of the Japanese maple type that I bought earlier today. And so yesterday. And so I just that's the name that keeps going in my head, and I know that's not correct. And yeah, it's Dusk Bloods is the name of the game. So, but yeah, this is exciting. I mean, I guess the one good thing about it not being until next year that it's coming out is the fact that I still have multiple different FromSoft games to play before then. And so I have theoretically enough time to at least get through 2 or 3 of them, depending on, how long it takes for me to actually get back to that. All right. Any other thoughts on that?
No, sir.
All right. Let's see here. I know we have at least one more big reveal here. And yes, it was confirmed. Oh, it's on the official Nintendo website that the interview with Hidetaka Miyazaki will be on Friday the 4th. So I don't know if it's a video interview or just a written interview, but either way, definitely be checking that out. Find out more about that game. But I think now we're getting to one of the last big reveals. I mean, Duskbloods was definitely still like the biggest one for me. But come on, stop talking and just show what it is. Make sure that I have the right. Oh yeah, that's right. There's 2 more big reveals. Okay, so this next one, we got confirmation of what Masahiro Sakurai's next game is. And it is Kirby Air Riders, which is a sequel to the GameCube game Kirby Air Ride. I never played the original game, but this is Sakurai we're talking about, so we know it's going to be quality. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, similar to what you said, I haven't played Kirby Air Ride, and when I first saw the Warp Star, I thought, okay, yeah, this is a Kirby game. But then when I saw the thrusters appear, I thought, no way, this can't be what I think it is, right? And then as Kirby kept flying, I thought, no, this is good. Nice little look. I thought, okay, yeah, so this is definitely Kirby Air Ride. And I mean, from the people that I know who've played Kirby Air Ride, they said it's a good game. So I definitely don't doubt that this will be a good game as well. And as you said, this is Sakurai we're talking about, and Kirby is his baby. I mean, Kirby is, I guess you could say, the series he wants to be most associated with, because it's a game that he initially developed and made, and it's near and dear to him. And I think he's worked on most, if not every, Kirby game. So I have no doubt that he'll put a lot of care into this one as well. And, for a sequel to a game that hasn't been, that it's been years. I think they said 2001 was when Air Ride first came out. 24 years is definitely a long wait. So for people who enjoyed it, I definitely hope that this one's good. And I am interested in giving this one a shot. But, of course, I feel like I should go back and play the first Air Ride and see what that one was all about. But yeah, definitely good stuff there.
Yeah. I don't really have any other thoughts. So let's get into the final reveal of the Direct today, and that is a brand new 3D Donkey Kong game. It's only the second one we've ever gotten, and if I was a Donkey Kong fan, I would probably be interested in this, but I don't like Donkey Kong at all, so I'm not. So, what are your thoughts on the matter?
Oof, got a Donkey Kong hater in here.
Well, I will tell you, the origin of my hating monkeys is Bubbles from Dragon Ball Z. And since then, it's an irrational hatred. It doesn't necessarily make sense, but especially because gameplay wise, I think it actually looks pretty great. But I just have this irrational hatred that I can't get past. So.
Yeah. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan. I mean, I've played Donkey Kong Country, or at least the Game Boy Advance ports. I didn't play it. Well, I played a little bit of the original SNES version on the SNES Classic, but I haven't played too much of the series. But I mean, yeah, for people who enjoyed the Donkey Kong games, I'm definitely certain that you should enjoy this. Granted, I don't know how like the 3D game differed too much from the 2D one, so hopefully there's improvements made. But yeah, visually it looks nice though. I will admit that. But yeah, nothing too much from me.
All right, that's good. And of course, it doesn't help that, I mean, they went to they went to a different appearance, which is all well and good, except the fact that it's so much like the one from the Mario movie, which of course Donkey Kong was voiced by Seth Rogen, and I cannot stand Seth Rogen, so that doesn't help anything. But I mean, like I'm sure it's gonna be great. I'm sure it'll be a great game. It's just I'm probably not gonna play it. But either way, I think it's great that they're finally doing another 3D Donkey Kong game, because the last one was the Nintendo 64. And that was probably pretty close to 30 years ago now. I guess it was probably more like 25 years ago, because I think it was early 2000s or late 90s. I want to say it was like 2000 that the Donkey Kong 64 came out. So that was the last time that they did a 3D Donkey Kong. The only Donkey Kong games they've had since then have all been 2D. So, but yeah. Okay, well, that is everything on my end. With it being as late as it is, I think we probably could just end out for the night. So, why don't you go ahead and give me your recommendations and dissuasions?
All right, so my recommendation is going to be... Oof, okay, I did not write one. So my recommendation is going to be, if there is something that you should have notes for, make sure you write it down ahead of time, so that way you do not have anything to present when it is time. That is my recommendation.
All right. My recommendation is going to be, when it comes to the Switch 2, especially the games, vote with your wallet. And whether that is in a positive or a negative direction, just be aware that if you vote in favor of spending $90 on a physical game, Nintendo's going to take that message and they're going to run with it. So just be aware of what you're doing when you choose to spend your money. And if you choose to close your wallet, maybe we'll have a better result, but I'm not expecting that for people. I think there's too many people who are fanboys and fangirls that will just accept it, and they're just going to keep pushing it. Nintendo's going to push it further, and so is Sony, and so is everybody, and it's a good thing we have a lot of games to play.
Yep.
So, all right, dissuasion.
My dissuasion is going to be, do not neglect your sleep. Admittedly, that's something that I've been guilty of doing, and I have been suffering the consequences multiple times and still neglecting my sleep regardless of that. So I've been trying to get better. I've been doing a little bit better at that, but don't neglect your sleep. Get a good night's rest, because your body will definitely thank you in the long run.
Indeed. All right. Well, I forgot to actually write down a dissuasion, but I'm just going to say, do not spend $90 on a Nintendo Switch 2 game. It's just not worth it. I don't care what... I mean, I should say, do not spend on $90 on a Nintendo Switch 2 game unless it comes with some major benefits, like early access, DLC, a bunch of bonus stuff. If it does that, then okay. But if it doesn't have all that, don't spend $90. I know that that's going to be really hard for people when it comes to Mario Kart World, but I do not want this to become a normal thing. And I mean, yes, I have lots of games to play, but it just sets a really bad precedent. That's really what it comes down to. It's not good. It's not good for gaming, and it's... I hate this. Okay, yeah, that's what I got. So, where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel. I am Xeracon. That's IAMXERACON. So youtube.com/@IamXeracon. I was going to put out my GameCube video today, but in light of the Switch Direct, I decided to postpone it. So it's going to be coming out tomorrow, which actually would be yesterday on Thursday. So that's when it will come out, or has come out. And then I feel like there's something else I'll be putting out, but I will see based on time. So we'll see what happens there.
Good stuff. All right, well, I have multiple YouTube channels. I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible. So I have my YouTube gaming channel at the Frozen Gamer 87. No new content put out recently. That channel is also up on Rumble, but does not have anything posted there apart from the test stream I did a couple weeks ago before doing Extra Life earlier. And then I also have my cooking channel, Not Authentic But Delicious, which is on YouTube and Rumble. And there haven't been any new recipes on either one. Rumble currently doesn't have anything posted just because I haven't gotten around to it. But just know that if you like the content that's on the YouTube channel, it will come to Rumble. It just hasn't happened yet. Then we also have the video. We have the YouTube channel and Rumble channel for the podcast, which actually does have the podcast every week. And that is for the video version of the podcast, which has not only all the normal content, but also our beautiful faces and gameplay clips from the games we've been playing. And those normally go live 7 a.m. Central Time every Friday, as long as we don't have tech issues. Theoretically, it should be less of a problem, but it's funny enough, last week when I was editing the podcast, so my first time using DaVinci Resolve for editing, and when it came to rendering, I didn't really have any issues with rendering the video version, but the audio only version, which goes up 12 a.m. Central Time normally every Friday, and on all major audio podcast platforms, when I was rendering that, the file had to be under 2 gigabytes in order to be uploaded to RSS feeds so that it would go to all the different places. And I could not get it to go under 2 gigs with wave format. And I mean, ultimately I figured it out. I was able to get it there, but like initially it was like 2.19 gigabytes, which normally when I was doing it through Premiere, it was never that big. I never had any problems. And then I managed to get it down to 2.01 gigabytes. But the problem is it doesn't show you what the file size is going to be until after it's actually rendered. And so I had to render it like 4 times before I finally got it small enough to upload. And that would actually ended up getting uploaded after the video version. So anyway, but yes, you can find the podcast audio only version normally 12 a.m. Central Time every Friday. That should be the case this week as well, now that I understand better how to use Resolve. And doing all my editing there from now on, and hopefully everything will just, as I learn it better, it will get better and faster and all that. So that is everything I have. And I guess the only thing is that if you want to contact us, you can send us an email, orangeboxpodcast@gmail.com. That is theorangeboxpodcast@gmail.com. There's also the Pod Clips channel, YouTube and Rumble, the Orange Box Pod Clips, and that's just all the different segments from the podcast. I did not put up the ones last week because I just had a very busy weekend and didn't get around to it. But and there definitely won't be anything going up this weekend because I'm going to be out of town for 3 days. So, but yeah, that's basically everything. So, any final thoughts?
No, sir.
All right. Well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zeracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast, and until next time, Nintendo charging full game or charging $90 for physical games is boshi, which is the Japanese word for hat. Orange Box Podcast out.